This is the 2022 one-year reading for RBLX. That's Roblox Corp on the New York Stock Exchange. R, Robert, Bob, Larry, Xylophone. All right, and the price is 50.05, so $50.05, and it currently is February 25th, 4:34 p.m. on 2022. All right, guys. RBLX 2022. All right, the overall theme and behavior for RBLX throughout the year of 2022 is a lot of volatility. There's quite a bit of volatility throughout the year, like notable compared to the average one-year reading. And it's crossed with indolence. There's a peak from which we will not revisit that price level. Once we fall from that peak, we won't revisit that price level within 2022. It's not looking good so far. Not to say that there aren't good opportunities in here. So around the high, we're gonna see a very sharp dip through a prominent support level, like through it from the highs for the year, and a very so it'll be a big decline. I mean, a big decline all the way down to the lows. These are the year high correlator and year low correlator. All right, so these clusters are all basically the same. The way it works is this is early January, this is late January, this is the high or highs for January, this is the low or lows for January. So timeline cards sort of. And each month is basically the same thing. Yeah, it's better to do it like this. More space. All right, so that's January, February, March, April, early April, late April, April's high, April's low. Then we have May. That mic's a little annoying. May's low, and then one more. We have June, so let's move this over a bit. And the reason why I like to get it all neat and proper is because when I throw stuff on top of it, whoo, whoa. It basically jumped into the late. Wow. Put that one on top. Like, as I was talking about clairkinetics, I didn't even get to say the word yet, and we had clairkinetics. It's crazy. So clairkinetics, guys, is when the cards move. I once had a book fly off a shelf. I was like, which book should I get? Plop, right on the floor. And it was, I mean, there was nobody there. I'd been standing there for a few minutes. It's pretty crazy. Anyhow, July, early July, late July. July's high, July's low. August, September, October, November, December. I guess that'll have to do. All right. Finally, we have local highs, local lows. This is the updated one-year spread. And then we have trade opportunities. I'm deciding if I want to throw down two more trade. I'm going to leave it like that, two more trade, just two trade opportunity cards, and we'll see what we come up with. All right, so in the first month, we have an important price level highlighted. There may be kind of like sideways movement, but then we have a big push off of a low to create a new, like a higher top to a range. And then we poke through a resistance 3 times before we drop sharply down towards the end of the month of January. There's a U-shaped dip around where there's intersecting perpendicular trend lines in early February, selling from an overbought crest out of the high, and a very sharp dip downward to meet the low. Towards the end of the month, we have kind of like lower strife is basically meeting resistance and then falling and then spiking up but not as high as the resistance, and then falling lower and then spiking up but not as high as the last peak on the way down. And generally speaking, if it's in a downtrend, it'll be using the moving averages as its resistance levels on the way down. We have an opportunity within a rally to open some, to protect against decline or short the stock or buy some puts. Okay, it's a prudence card towards the end of the month, so I'm going to throw this down. So it looks like a lot of volatility at the end of the month. A lot of volatility at the end of the month of March, with a sharp dip within that period of volatility. And so multiple, or I should say, it looks like multiple false bottoms towards the end of the month, after a failed attempt to break through resistance near the high, followed by a sharp decline through a support level to meet a second support level, bounce around that support level, and then break down through more support levels. That's how we reach the low for March. All right. April, we have a selling from a crest down through a support level, and we kind of like hang out below it for a little bit, and then we pop back up above that support level and we travel along it. And to reach the high, we successfully, for April, we move from a support through a resistance and successfully create new support out of that resistance. And then near the low, there's a push higher through a resistance level, and then we're only up above it briefly before we break back down through it, and it creates kind of like a triangle or an A shape, if you will, like price level with the A going through it. Big move higher at the end of the month of April. Revisit a crest in early May, in the midst of some kind of like erratic back and forth between an important price level, possibly the same price level here as this one, but we revisit that crest, and it was a crest that was a good opportunity. So we revisit that in early May. To reach the high, we travel along a diagonal trend line. We break through a horizontal resistance to meet a second resistance, and then we pull back a little bit, so we're in between those two price levels. There is 3 crisscrosses through the same price level, and the third cross through it confirms a bullish trend. That behavior around the low for May, and then towards the end of the month, we have selling down. We meet resistance and then we sell down to reach a support level, which we bounce along horizontally towards the end of the month of May. Early June, we have kind of like a sideways back and forth decline. It's kind of like the opposite of the Chariot card in a lot of cases. A sideways backwards decline that precedes a move higher. So that's early June, and then we have a sharp decline from a peak. I mean, it's one of the biggest. The Tower card is one of the biggest decline cards there is, generally speaking. It's off of a peak. And then we also have a breakout out of the low. And it looks like we probably have that low at the end of the month, based on the clairkinetics and the fact that this is a opportunity in the midst of a decline to open long positions. Yeah, we have this breakout which continues in early July as we move higher and gain momentum. Congress or government, a foreign government agency of some sort, is highlighted around the low of July, along with an economic leader or male ruler highlighting economics. That all takes place around an important support level in July. We also meet a very important resistance level around the high for July. And in late July, we're still moving higher, pushing to reach a distant resistance level. Yeah, so this is a big opportunity right here, the end of June, guys, somewhere towards the end of June. So I'd probably buy calls. If I was going to place a trade like that, I'd probably buy calls here around the high as we're declining and bank on this breakout through all of July. And then it looks like even we move higher in August, but there's some volatility and a bit of a decline. I see an opportunity to open position in both directions, so calls and puts of some sort, or puts in a long position, because we push much higher from the low of August. The high forms from a fast sudden move higher within a period of decline, and it kind of marks the end of that decline. So my sense is probably have a bit of a decline in early August in some volatility, but then we push much higher out of that decline, and that's a cash-in opportunity, being that the following month of September we have a breakdown through multiple support levels. There's a fake out near the high for September. There's an important decision between two parties highlighted around the low for December. And I threw down another card just to see a bit more, and we have a big push out of like oversold or possibly like a short squeeze out of the low, but we are range bound towards the end of the month. In early October, we have we're moving along a diagonal trend, moving higher along a diagonal trend line with a fast sudden move higher that marks the end of a rally. And then we break down through that diagonal trend line with increasing volatility on the way down. A lot of volatility this month, back and forth, kind of like which way do we go, which way do we go. Near the high for October, it looks like the October high is likely early on, and then we have a lot of volatility, probably revisit the low, where we have multiple lows on the way down for October's low. There's a flight to safety towards the end of the month. So most likely what we see here is a move higher, a fast and move higher early on, and a breakdown through it. We do some like back and forth, and then we break down through that diagonal trend line, increasing in volatility on the way down to the low towards the end of the month. In November, that continues. That decline continues. It's a significant decline. But then around the low, we start moving sideways. There's sideways fluidity, so equal bulls and bears sort of kind of like towards the end of the month start moving us sideways. We bounce up against, after meeting the low, we bounce up against resistance, and we travel along resistance. We may break through that resistance to meet another one, but it's mostly horizontal moving along resistance levels. That's the Valor card. And then as well as the behavior around near the high is going to be bullish rotation, moving sideways, but increasing in bullishness and momentum as we move forward in time. That's the behavior moving into the high. There is an important bottom in early December, sharp decline to meet the low, December's low. And then we have, from December's low, we have a big push out of that decline to meet December's high. We go from the low to the high very quickly. And then there's a notable decline at the end of December. So I'm going to be looking for big moves higher as my trade opportunities. One is going to happen within, like out of a period of a lot of negative headwinds, and everybody's expecting to go lower. It goes higher, even breaks through some resistance. And then the other trade opportunity is going to be around a big push higher that's either like a upside down U or an upside down J, just a big push to the upside. And I'll be looking into that further. That's likely this over here. I'm guessing, I'm not guessing, I sense that this is probably over here. Well, we'll have to look closer, but behavior around the local lows, behavior around the local highs before we move lower out of those highs will be multiple failed attempts to break through the key resistance before we start to decline, and that's the behavior that we'll see around the local highs. And then we also will have a big move out of an important support level. I mean, it'll be a prominent move higher, notable on the chart, and that'll be off of the local lows. All right, guys, so stay tuned. That's the ESO portion of ESO meta-analysis, where we go through the timeline and the sequence of events. And now what I'm going to do is mark this up with the meta pattern recognition portion, which is proprietary form of analysis that I developed over 22 years. And I'm going to mark it up, and we'll continue with this reading momentarily, in which I'll get into the timing of the highs and the lows, the local highs, local lows, what their behavior is, where they are, highs, lows, all that stuff. As well as trade opportunities. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in a bit. Hello, my friends. This is the one-year reading for RBLX for the year of 2022. That's RBLX, which is Roblox Corporation. Currently at 51:04, and the time now is 3:17 p.m. on March 1st, 2022. All right, so we have an important highlight, price level highlighted in early January If we go ahead and we look at it, year-to-date chart, it looks like we have the high right here. Let's put a horizontal in here. Alright, so we had a high right here thus far for the year. That seems like an important price level to me. And then we had a push higher off of the low. That was a notable push higher, maybe possibly pushing the upper end of a range. 3 tests against resistance, followed by a sharp decline after the third poke through that price level of resistance. And that's in the end of January. So it looks like we decline. And when we look at the 1-year chart, we have the end of January, we have a low. We were at 53.85 and then we popped higher out of that low all the way up to 70. So we went from 54 to 70. This is a notable move higher, guys. I would say that that classifies as an Aeon card. Very notable. That maybe doesn't look like from the chart, but it is. All right, and then we have a kind of like a dip in early, around 2 diagonal intersecting perpendicular trend lines. We have a dip, a U-shaped dip within them. And then we have a prominent high for the year thus far in February. And you can see we went into February, boom, prominent high, and then we drop. So late February is the strife card. So we sell from that high, right? Overbought, right? So we were on our way to overbought here. We sell from that high, notably lower. Moon card can often indicate a gap. And then we have the strife card moving into March, and you can see the strife card is bouncing off of a resistance, right? And then declining further, and that resistance is generally going to be a moving average. All right, so now we're in early March. We have an opportunity in early March to open up some protection on long positions or to purchase puts, short the stock. There's a trade opportunity there. And it looks like we don't revisit that price level for quite some time. There's a failed attempt to break resistance around the high for March, and then we decline through a significant price level, meet another support level, and then we bounce along that for a little bit before breaking down through multiple support levels to reach the low. Towards the end of the month of March, and also towards the low for the month of March, which is towards the end of the month, we're going to have a bunch of volatility and a sharp dip within that period of volatility, and I'm advised to look for a trade opportunity there, possibly in the bottom of in the midst of some false bottoms, as you know, the prudence card could possibly be indicating there. And that's late March, excuse me. As we move into early April, looks like we have a push higher in very, very early April, and that's followed by a notable decline from a peak down to a support and through the support, and then back up to bounce around at that support level that it sold down to. There's a trade opportunity there in the midst of a peak that's not going to be revisited for quite some time. And then we have a push at the end of the month in the midst of some volatility, creating a trade opportunity. There's a significant amount of movement in late April as far as like change in price. And then also the high, it looks like the high successfully creates new support out of old resistance. And we have some news that comes out in early May, like the first week of May. We revisit a crest that was a good opportunity, possibly the same price level as we dropped from in February, the February high. It's possible, or it could just be another prominent high. In either case, we'll reach that high by traveling along a diagonal trend line, breaking through resistance, meeting a second resistance, and then we'll pull back a little bit to be in between those two price levels. And that's how we form the high in May. There's a significant trade opportunity. It looks like the second week of May as well. Off of the low, there's 3 crisscrosses through support, or through a price level, and then the third cross through that same price level confirms a bullish trend. But then at the end of the month, there's a fall. There's a decline from meeting a resistance or breaking through a support, and we meet a second resistance. A second support. So we decline from that price level to meet a second support, and we bounce along that support after that sharp decline, and that's the end of May. We have continued decline with some fluctuation in early June, and it looks like it marks possibly the it marks possible opportunity before there's a rally again, and it looks like we have that same indication at the end of the month. So there's a sharp decline. It looks like probably from the peak in May, we decline further. There's some fluctuation, and then we probably have a low at the end of the month of June, or a month's low at the end of the month of June, followed by a breakout around that low, which is a trade opportunity, because we have a push higher, a notable push higher, and a rally in early July to visit a important price level. Price level, and there's a trade opportunity in early July, the revisiting of a notable support level, and a year's low here. I also left out, there was a year's low correlator in early March. Excuse me. But in any case, so there's a month's low correlator here in July, and that's an important support level. It looks like Congress is probably highlighted, or some sort of government agency, some sort of leader that's not normal, like you wouldn't first think of. And then that price level we revisit in the midst of some volatility and a bit of a rally. Towards the end of the month of July, we're pushing much higher to a distant resistance level, and we do meet another year's prominent high. And it's a fast, sudden move higher within the midst of a decline that marks the end of that decline. That's how we reach the high in August. And it's also early August is in the midst of volatility. There's an opportunity to play both sides of the market, it looks like, because we have a year's low and a year's high correlation here in early August. So we probably go from a low and push much higher towards the end of the month into August, reach a prominent high. That's a trade opportunity, obviously. And then we also have a decline from that high. We won't revisit that price level within the near future within this reading again. And then we have a sharp decline. So there's a price opportunity. There's a local high here at the end of August and an opportunity to cash in on some positions. And then we have another sharp decline through multiple support levels in early September. There's a fake out around the high in the midst of some substantial volatility and a big change in fluctuation in price around the high for the month. It's also within close proximity to what looks like another correlation to a month's low, or a prominent low for a year's low, or a prominent low for the year. But off of the low for the year, which looks like is towards the end of the month, we have a big push to the upside. Looks like from overbought or a short squeeze of some kind. and we're range bound at the end of the month. So that could mean that we travel back and forth within a range. More likely though, it indicates that we pop off of the bottom end of the range towards the low, which looks like is the last week of the month. There could possibly be a merger around the low here, a possible merger or acquisition, an agreement between two parties, a partnership of some kind that's highlighted. And then we have another bout of extreme volatility in October, especially around the low. We have a high correlator for the year and a low correlator for the year, so we probably have a very prominent high and a very prominent low close to each other within the month of October. In early October, we move higher. We're moving higher through along a diagonal trend line, and we break down through that diagonal trend line. On the way down, we increase in volatility, and you can see towards the low we've experienced quite a bit of volatility. Looks like we have that high early in the month, or the month's high early in the month, with some back and forth wishy-washiness, price fluctuation around that high. Another local low and a trade opportunity towards the end of the month of October in the midst of flight to safety. That flight to safety continues notably to reach another year's prominent low, or possibly the year's low, which we have in November. There's a sharp decline in early November, and then off of the low we bounce along a resistance, break through resistance, bounce along another resistance, and we do some sideways fluctuation along resistance around the high and into the end of the month of November. There's the end of the month of November looks like it's probably the month's the year's low. Actually, the year's low looks like it's probably the second week of November, and then there's another prominent low there, or a revisiting of the year's low in the end of November, early December. But that's a prominent low, a very important low in early December, and it's met through a sharp decline, which is like a U-shaped decline or possibly a J-shaped decline. And then out of that decline, there's a big move higher towards the end of the month. We go from a notable support all the way to a notable resistance towards the end of the month of December. So behavior around these highs, the indicator for a prominent high in February, a prominent high in May, and a prominent high in June and October, there's going to be a sharp decline out of those highs, guys, through an important support level. The lows for the year are going to be met after sharp declines. The universe card is the biggest decline card in the deck. So overall, I would say this is a very bearish reading, guys, a very bearish reading. I would use the opportunity right around now, early May. If I was owning the stock, I would use the opportunity to protect my investment or short the stock, possibly if as a more advanced trader. I would not be in this stock. I would not be in this stock. That's my personal opinion. And there you have it, guys. It's RBLX, Roblox. Again, the price level at the time of this reading, 50.33. We were conducting this reading on March 1st, roughly 3:30 p.m. And I'll see you all later, guys. Talk to you later.